Hello and welcome to DXgov governance discussion for Wednesday, January 11th, 1600 UTC. We will start with the, let's look over the agenda first. I'll share my screen now. Yes, we have a bunch of proposals on Mainnet, a couple proposals in particular that we'll want to dive into on the OTC settlement under DXD token model 1, 2, and 202. But really, I think the member balancer proposal, that's a very big proposal, so we want to go through that and understand that. A couple proposals on Gnosis Chain. I was actually having trouble getting to Gnosis Chain on this morning, but we can go over theirs. And then just after that, a couple discussion items, just checking in on kind of where things are with the budget and the guild. And then I wanted to kind of touch on two initiatives that have been like discussion format here at the end, the DXgov governance stewards, which would be a way of encouraging non-contributors to rep holders that are non-contributors to participate in governance and get paid for it. And then the mission wardens are this idea of, I think we used to call it guild council or something that would provide some oversight and accountability for the guilds themselves. So we will start with the, as I said, the proposal roundup here. And so just a couple different ones. At the beginning, we have 7 hours. Always some of my favorite proposals here. We have the update swapper.eth content hash. So of course, this is, I think this is beta 18 here. So a new release from the swapper team. And this has been uploaded to IPFS and will be hopefully pass in about 6.5 hours. And then we'll have the new swapper release will be live on swapper.eth.limo. And then next up, we have this deposit 130 ETH and 300 DXD into the swapper liquidity relayer. So this is was part of the new token model. A proposal that we approved last week is a way to increase on-chain liquidity by using DXDAO's own assets and protocol-owned liquidity. So this is the funding proposal. It will send the ETH and the DXD to the swapper relayer. A separate proposal that we'll get to in just a second is the one that is actually going to actually program the order of deposit at the right amounts. But this is the funding proposal right here, and that will pass in 10 hours there. And then, while we're kind of on that, why don't we so there are actually two proposals now live regarding the actual deposits of those liquidities. So this is the first one, and this would deposit 61 DXD and 25 ETH. So it's actually either or, because that's what it will program in, and then it will use the on-chain price when it's executed to then deposit at that same amount. And I believe it comes with a 5% slippage there too. So this is 61 DXD and 25 ETH. I think the current pool is like 55 ETH and 140 DXD. So this is a pretty sizable increase. So this is the first proposal. We're splitting these proposals up because it is such an increase to the on-chain liquidity there. This proposal has not been voted on, but hopefully will be in the next 3 days, and we'll get some more DXDAO liquidity on-chain for swapper mainnet. And then we have Augusto contributor proposal number 7 payment. This one is at 90%. So Augusto had, this is, I think, for 4 months, September to 2022, some discussion on this proposal. You can see in the DAO talk here, and then this one at 90%, as you can see here, Candy Fork voted for that one, and so just past the 2 days mark. And we have then we have another request for Q2 gas governance refund. So this was I believe this is Sky. Did not claim his gas refunds in the previous one. So this is him claiming it here. And the way that the gas refunds work, and also just a kind of call to attention, if the Q3 gas refunds are ready to be claimed now, Q3 and Q4. So if you're looking to get those for participating in governance, head to this site there, and you'll be able to figure out how to get that ETH. But the way that the contract works is if no one claims it after a certain amount of time, there is a way to basically, where is it? You can like kill the contract. You can kill the contract, and it basically sends the remaining ETH back to DXDAO. So that's what happened 12 days ago. And so this proposal is to claim those gas refunds that were not claimed in the previous smart contract and are now back in DXDAO. And then we have another worker proposal, just trying to get through all the worker proposals and other ones before we get to the DXD ones. And so this is from Philip Vadakovich. This is, we had a couple different proposals for this one. I think the first one was submitted was like 5.6 billion USDC, which is clearly one of many times that the USDC decimal problem has sprouted up. But this one looks to be the right one, is just actually gone into the boosted phase there. Won't be there for 6 days. And Philip doing a lot of QA work for all of the products. I was having some trouble accessing Alchemy this morning, though. I actually did find that DXvote was a little bit more reliable than Alchemy this morning, but glad we have both there. It's the graph. That was the original creation of the DXvote, though, was so that you didn't have to rely on the graph because it was tough. So I think that's all of the. Let me just look quickly. I think that's all of the regular proposals, not the XD ones. And so, just to kind of look at all of the bunch of, maybe someone could mute someone. Not sure who this is. They have a mechanical keyboard. Thank you, Keenan. So the proposals that are live in terms of DXD, as I said, we have the DXD liquidity one, so that would make sure that there is on-chain liquidity in Swapper for those that would increase it there. And then we have I think there are 8 orders right now that are purchases through CowSwap. And so these, you can see, we obviously, because it takes so long, we can see Dave submitted these December 27th, and it takes 16 days to go through. This one is just for 5,000, but if you see, I think starting with this one, the orders increased to 15,000 here, and that's kind of been going through there. So these just get executed on chain, and if they cannot be filled, then they are kind of turned into a limit order there, as it says in the proposal here. So that's the LUSD one. And then we did just have like this new proposal here, which is pretty big. And this is different than the other ones because it is a liquidity order. Maybe Dave, you could, so this is a big one because it's a liquidity order. And then the big thing is this would be a $500,000 DXD purchase through CowSwap, which of course would be the largest one to go through CowSwap. But we had to figure out some things to get this one correct. And so maybe Dave, could you explain like what the difference between this buy liquidity order and what was used before?
Sure. So, I mean, the main limitation there is that CowSwap does not allow partial fills of orders yet. That means if we submitted it, if we submitted a $500,000 order under the previous method, and it wouldn't have matched once we sign it, the order then becomes a limit order, but it's fill or kill. So there's no partial matching. So until the order duration is live, if someone can entirely fill that in one go by trading through CowSwap, it would fill, but it would not allow for any partial filling. And the difference between the liquidity order, it's like a special set of order they kind of set up for market makers mostly, is allowing to set larger order amounts that also allow a partial fill. And to even be able to set these orders, you kind of have to be whitelisted by CowSwap. And these allow partial filling. So also still there is the limitation that this is only for orders that go directly through CowSwap. So these liquidity orders will not pick up available liquidity on the market kind of when the order is signed, but you'll only be able to sell into this liquidity order by going directly through CowSwap. And then assuming this were the best price available on the market, you would fill this order. So it still would work. CowSwap would still always give you the best rate. And that's kind of like the main difference. And the idea behind these, of course, we have this 16-day limitation, or 60-day duration, which is kind of like a limitation on like placing accurate orders in terms of price and circulating supply. but kind of like how we set it up for now, at least there's some temporary liquidity on the market, is that we submit proposals with a 23-day duration. So if you account for the 16 days it actually takes for the order to pass, because the order starts when you actually create the order through their API. So the 16 days kind of are part of the order, and then you have an additional 7 days of where the order is actually signed and people can sell into it. And so, like, if you submit a proposal every 7 days, you can kind of update the price. It is still lacking behind significantly, which is also why we're looking into potentially installing a new multi-scheme so we can like at least reduce that time frame a lot. But yeah, that's how it's currently set up, and this will be our first one going through. And I think it also makes sense to kind of like now that we have the Mimic Vault, wrap some of the ETH we have and also start placing some of these orders in ETH as well, as that should also like be able to reflect at least market volatility a bit better, as ETH is more correlated to DXD, of course.
Cool. Yeah, and I think it's cool. There's been a lot of coordination with the Cal team on this and kind of figuring out different things. And I think DXDAO is like a very good user for Cal because it's a different one than a lot of their other ones. But I think they've enjoyed kind of seeing how to work on those. So yeah, this is, I think, is an exciting one. Dave and I were just talking about being able to submit another one of these today and figuring out the specific price for that. And again, this is like 16 days to go through. I think we're talking, we were just talking, I think, yesterday about trying to create a new multi-call scheme that would whitelist the CowSwap contract so that it could pass through 8 days like the previous Mesa orders. And then for that, I think that's a pretty effective way of doing lots of different open market operations for DXD and other tokens, because DXDAO can submit any of those over 8 days and they're not fill or kill, and they can provide a lot of liquidity. But we're still kind of figuring that out there. So yeah, that's the kind of those CowSwap proposals there, and then we have a big proposal here, the member balancer proposal under new DXD token model. This is from ponzilonger.eth, aka Zagu, aka Connor. And we can, this is a lot of discussion in the forum, and you can see kind of that discussion here. And I think the key thing to highlight is you can see this address that submitted the proposal sent 5,634 DXD to DXDAO at this time. And so that DXD is now in DXDAO's treasury. And then this is a member balancer to claim the I guess proceeds makeup of that are kind of passed with the new DXD token model being 70%. So if you look, I think there is a calculation here that Connor did for the what the calculation was. And so this is basically at the snapshot of sending the DXD in, that this was the makeup of the treasury. And in this proposal, interestingly, I think it was split evenly. No, about 2/3 would be in ETH, so 1,700 ETH, and then the rest would be in USDC, so 1.17 million USDC. So that was, and so there's actually two benefits. I think you can talk about if you splitting up the ETH and the stablecoins is one, you kind of dampen some of the volatility because you have the two different ones. And then also, I think from DXDAO's perspective, it saves a rebalancing effort because this basically keeps the treasury at the exact same makeup in terms of ETH and stablecoins. And so it doesn't require any extra kind of work from DXDAO to be able to rebalance that there. So this is a lot of money. A lot of funds coming to DXDAO, a lot of DXD that's kind of gone in. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion, so I wasn't sure if anyone had any comments or thoughts, or Connor, if you wanted to clarify anything that I said. I promise I didn't time that, but I literally, right as soon as I muted, I knocked over my coffee here. Yeah, and so we've got some questions. Molotov, could other member balancer requests go at the same time? I think Cman3 asked that. So I think that is, it's difficult because if you look at the snapshot right now, the Treasury, right, when you would be sending that in, I think that snapshot would not be representative of where the Treasury and the 70% would be in 6 days or 7 days when this proposal would pass, because presumably if Connor's proposal does pass, that has like a big effect on these numbers. So I think anyone is more than capable of submitting those, but it does run the risk of, does this actually live up to the 70% number there? Does that make sense, or is that? Yeah, because I think with all this, it's like we're looking for, I don't know, confirmation, but it's like I can't give you confirmation. Only like DXgov can give you confirmation, and like I know it's pretty. It can be nerve-wracking to depend on DXgov when you're kind of sending your funds. I think contributors are very aware of that feeling and going through that voting process every month to get paid by DXgov and not really sure if you've kind of fulfilled everything in that. You can't ever get that kind of final confirmation. But that's kind of the nature of the beast, I think, with DXgov. Yeah, and I think so Molotov, it's like, and this is, I'm speaking for Caney Fork, right? So Caney Fork, I've not fully kind of run the numbers on this, but and since this one is here, I think if another member balancer proposal would be submitted, right, it could only be like, I guess it would take 8 days, so it'd be about a day and a half behind this one. Caney Fork would wait until this proposal would go through and then recalculate what is the 70% NAV, and there's also maybe some other changes in terms of the assets. And then if that 70% number matched up what was in the proposal for the other member balancer, then it would vote for that. But if it didn't, it would vote it down. And of course, the only way you can submit that proposal is if the DXD is already in the Treasury, right? And that would be the only way that Caney Fork would vote for that. So I think it's just, it's a little, you can't get final confirmation until things are. But I think with the DXD that's like sent in through the first one, the Connor, then so once the chain is broken, I'm not sure what that means. I mean, as I said, anyone's free to submit DXD member balancers are right. It just from what at least Caney Fork will vote for, it's only going to be ones that fulfill the 70% NAV, and that calculation will depend on what it is at that moment when the proposal passes. And I think since you have a very big proposal going through here, that will affect all of this. And so I wouldn't vote for, and I don't know other rep voters would vote for a member balancer until that proposal passed, and then match up the Treasury makeup at that point with what's in the member balancer proposal. Right. That's why it's like, it can be, and so you could, I mean, actually, you could basically like not predict, but like guess and hope that it would go through and you could really time it. But it's just kind of hard to know exactly all of that. And I think like in general, this is like pretty hard stuff. And there are some things that are, I think, just difficult, by the nature of the beast. And I think there's kind of like two limitations that DXgov has here that are just really hard to avoid. Is like, one, there is not a centralized team, right? So every contributor operates independently and use the DAO for kind of consensus. And so when we're looking for like confirmation, that ultimate confirmation can only come on chain from DXgov. Like this has happened to contributors in the past where maybe I give confirmation to someone, but that confirmation from me is actually not good enough for DXgov. So it's kind of tough because we can only get that on-chain confirmation through a past proposal. And then second, every decision from DXgov takes at least 8 days to be decided. Right? And this is unavoidable reality of the first point, that the only way to have a DAO that speaks for a large number of stakeholders is to have ample time for all of them to review and discuss any proposal. So just like that time and the fact that we have to coordinate just kind of put some constraints on all of that. And that's why we're just kind of figuring out all these different solutions to be able to kind of implement it. And so Soup says, sounds like new member balancers should be submitted after the previous one has been executed, in which case there is an adversarial race between those who want to get out. So either we should bundle member balancers together or we should shift to Redemptor. My preference is it possible. So I think the one good kind of, if you think about this from a DXT holder perspective, the important incentive here is there is actually not an incentive to like run for the exits. So I think the exits that you're looking for here for anyone that wants to exit, because they want liquidity outside of DXT. So they want ETH, they want USD, they're going to go do that with something else. But the way the 70% NAV works, that if you are anyone that does a member balancer after Connor will get a higher price for their DXT than Connor did, right? So Connor is actually getting like one of the lower prices for DXT than others that would come after him, because every time you do a DXT purchase from DXDAO, that increases the price of DXT for the next person, right? And so like there is actually an incentive to basically wait for everyone else to exit, thereby like increasing your DXT price. I think there could be like, well, once Connor's passes, is there going to be someone that wants to jump in like immediately? And again, like I think anyone can do that. I don't think it's a very like if people are racing to submit member balancers, then it kind of, to me, makes sense to wait for those to go through and get a higher DXT price. And then like, as I said, I know this is kind of confusing. This is like kind of a big transition. We're trying to figure out this new token model and how it kind of applies to lots of things. And that's why I just say like separate from that, outside of some of these like larger ones, I think it's incredibly important to have like a liquid market for DXT that is not just through these member balancers, because that can have that can just be kind of confusing. So if even if someone's waiting to do a member balancer, maybe they could get liquidity, in 100 DXT without much slippage on chain because of the open market operations that we're doing there now. And then maybe we could talk I don't know if there are any questions, but I was going to talk a little bit about the Redemptor contract and how that kind of like fits into all these different tools that we're talking about. And so this has been worked on. We're kind of still testing out, but again, this is something like brand new. And I think if you look at Connor's original post, it was, he wanted to speed things up because he didn't want to wait on the Redemptor contract, even though that was probably maybe the best, what he was thinking is the long-term solution there. So yeah, Dave, I don't know if Dave or Adam want to kind of touch on this a little bit and some of the different things going on with the Redemptor contract.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, if you're here, maybe you can give an overview of like the latest pull request you did, or like where the project's at.
Okay, I think we're pretty much ready. It's just that Federico wants to review the contract one more time. Yesterday we implemented the TWAP for the Uniswap, so all of the prices are calculated on a TWAP of I think 1,000 seconds into the past at the time of the block where people are going to redeem their DXT. So pretty much I would say we would love to see this being deployed this week, and then we come up with a proposal where we start authorizing about like maybe $150,000 of the tokens that people want to redeem to, and then go from there and wait like 16 days for the proposal to pass, assuming it's going to pass.
Yeah, and so that's the 16-day there. But I guess I'm just thinking the contract needs to be deployed before the proposal passes, obviously, because you need to have that in the proposal itself. But do you actually need to have all of the Oracle aggregator network running when the proposal is launched, or I guess that only matters like when the proposal is passed and the redemption actually live?
Anything that is off chain can be can you start like looking into it, or people want to look into it after the contract is deployed or after the proposal is passed? Because we can always add the new signers or like remove them. But right now we only have like one person who actually showed interest in that. Is like Milan from Swappers QA.
Yeah, and so maybe if any DXT holders want to see this expedited, they can run the Oracle network. But I think that it's good that we don't have to wait for that to be solved before the proposal is live, because that 16 days just can be a long wait. But the good news is, like, unlike the other ones, when we have the 16 days, right, the big problem with the 16 days there is not just the wait, it's that when you're submitting that proposal, you're putting a price in that proposal, or this is the same through with the 8 days, even the member balancer one, you're putting that price in at the proposal submission. But here with the Redemptor contract, you wouldn't need to put the price in there, because the price, of course, will be determined when the redemption would happen itself. So that's why it's a bit better of a system.
Yeah, and also if there is a new multi-call scheme, which does include, for it to work for CowSwap, you of course also have to whitelist the tokens, right? So you can do the USDC approval and signing at the same time, right? So given that you don't actually have to interact with the redemption contract itself, you just have to give it an approval, it would be able to use that new multi-call scheme as well.
Cool. Other questions in the chat, or finish my last bit of coffee. Cool. And I guess just to like maybe take a step back, and I know we have this new where do I have it here? I think the new DXT token model, just to kind of say, I think where we're at there. So you can see here this past December 9th, so just over 1 month ago, and I think a lot of people were celebrating Christmas and New Year's during that time there. But I think since that's passed, you've seen already about 300K of DXT purchased, at $300,000 worth of DXT purchased at the 70% mark. You also now have the 2 proposals that are going to start fulfilling the protocol own liquidity. And then again, if you look at the live proposals right now from the CowSwap orders or from the member balancer, you have about $4.5 million worth of DXT purchases at 70% of NAV that are live right now, just about a month after the proposal passed. So I think that there's been a lot of progress in this area, and it is a kind of difficult problem to figure out a fair solution, and while also maintaining DXDAO's decentralized ethos. But at least in my opinion, I think we're making good progress on that. And the Redemptor contract, I think, is going to be the next step in that. Cool. Want to just any other parting thoughts on this? The proposal will be up for another 6 days. So Connor will, I don't know, be sleeping or not sleeping over those 6 days there. And then I think that'll be clearly a signal from DXDAO that it's kind of committed to this. And we can kind of talk about the other paths going forward. But at least to me, I think this is, beginning to fulfill the proposal passed. Cool. And then, just looking at Gnosis Chain, I was actually having a little bit of time on both Alchemy and, here we go, for Gnosis Chain here. So just a reminder, so there is actually now funds in Gnosis Chain Apologies to someone who was needed to redeem their USDC. So we're gonna have to do something to get some USDC in there. But there's now Gnosis Chain base is replenished, and there are 3 proposals live here. You can see on the 2 different ones. We have Dinos and Bedzix, aka Brown Backpack Guy, in the new contribution reward, and then we have Guerra P contributor proposals doing some great work on Swapper and DX stats. But those are the only proposals there. And and just kind of shifting to the let me just kind of final point by Molotov I'll read out loud. Just about the Redemptor, can we get details on the tokens that will be redeemed and in what proportion? Will it use the same proportion as the member balancer proposals? Maybe this question can be addressed on the implementation topic. I think, this is probably something that will require more discussion, but I think at least from my perspective, I think at least using the same, trying to maintain the same makeup of the treasury, maybe a little bit more stablecoins than ETH is the preference there, but there will be more than one tokens. I think as Dave is saying, like you will be able to do stablecoins or WETH. I don't think there'll be any other. I don't know if anyone wants the DMG in the treasury. The DMG should turn into an NFT though. So just as I said, Gnosis Chain base has been replenished. This was part of the funding of the guilds for the 2023. So this has been a process that we've been working on, I think, the last month or two here. In addition to all the discussion going on the DXC token model, I think a lot of the DXDAO contributors and rep holders have been focused on coming up with basically a new structure for DXDAO to exist in the future and moving away from one where we have these individual proposals that people have to make decisions on, but instead of doing that, rep holders and DXDAO governance is making decisions on what projects or guilds or departments to fund directly. And so I think we've kind of just finished the first process of that. We dispersed the funds to the guilds yesterday, and as I said, so some of them went to Gnosis Chain here. So all contributors kind of going forward, we shouldn't see any contributor proposal coming into Gnosis Chain or even Mainnet. Those contributor proposals should go directly to the guilds themselves. And then anytime any additional funding requests would need to come, that would need to come from DXDAO. That would need to go to DXDAO, but actually come from the guild itself rather than the individual. As kind of a general rule of thumb here, there will obviously maybe be other expenses or other costs that are going to be paid out through DXDAO. So there is about, I think, 100,000 DAI of, or there'll be about 100,000 DAI of in Gnosis Chain after these proposals. And so, I guess the general rule of thumb is if you have less than $5,000 in your pay request or whatever that is for contract work or whatever, or maybe it's for someone else, for someone that you're facilitating, that probably best to go through Gnosis Chain. But above $5,000, probably best to go through Mainnet. And of course, there is a gas redemption, gas refund for anyone interacting with DXDAO governance on Mainnet. So the cost there shouldn't be a concern. And then just wanted to maybe open up for any discussion on kind of the current status of the budgets and the guilds. I think we have gotten some worker proposals that have gotten up on Davi that these are, again, worker proposals to the guild, not to DXDAO, but those worker proposals are up. And then I think hopefully in the next day or two, we will start the streaming payments for contributors from those guilds or the lump sum payments there. But I did want to give just maybe an opportunity to see if anyone had any thoughts, questions, comments on the guild and budget status. Cool. Next topic is the DXDAO Governance Stewards. So this is a program meant to engage others into governance. So we discussed this, posted this form about a month ago, and then we discussed it last week on this call. And so I actually want to move forward to a proposal here. So just wanted to kind of highlight it here. The big change made after kind of discussion was lowering it to 0.1%, and this is on Gnosis Chain or Mainnet. You'd be able to like participate in that. And then, so that's 0.1% there. And actually, a clarification I want to make. Geez, look at how many likes Caden got. I got 1 like here, and he got 6 likes for this comment. And he liked my comment. So I guess by like deduction, you guys all liked my comment. I think the first one, he says, get rid of the vested DXD portion and replace it with USDC. Says such a small amount of DXD is almost trouble to complain for the account that it's worth. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I'm open to kind of discussion or moving that there. I think aligning governance with vested DXD is like the best. It's kind of the way to align incentives. I think if you're just paying people in stablecoins, then may not necessarily have that long-term alignment, but up for discussion. And then this one, as he said, maybe this is already implied, but clarify that active contributors at 50% of time or more can also be governance stewards. Yes, I meant to kind of put that in there. This is not a program to have people pay for the existing contributors, for participating in governance, as a way of kind of engaging those that are not working kind of full-time there. So I will definitely make sure and clarify that, but I wasn't sure if there were any other thoughts, maybe specifically about this DXD portion. Yes, I agree with, I agree with Connor's second point is you can get apathetic professional governors. They don't really care. And so I think this has kind of been interesting. I've been working a little bit in the, with ENS DAO, with the delegation from DXDAO. And you do see how like these stewards or whatever that are like small amount of payments, sometimes they are not as active as they want. And again, that's why I like the vested DXD point. And then Soup makes a interesting point about pricing it at NAV. Not opposed to it. The only reason is it's very hard to look back at the treasury NAV because like we don't have that retrospective, but it is very easy to do that with a DXD price. So you could actually even change that. So you could just if you wanted to do that. I think in general, I think you pay out NAV at DXD. That should be whenever DXD is like being paid out right now. I think it changes the calculation a little bit when you are vesting something. Yeah. I guess you take the NAV at the time the proposal passes. So. Cool. Yeah. Please leave any other comments, suggestions. I don't know, Caden's. I guess it does deserve the 6 likes because it just seems like a good, healthy point in discussion. So I think we can kind of incorporate them. And yeah. Cool. And then the last item wanted to discuss. Let's see, he probably got more like. No, he didn't. He got 4 likes this time. So this is another post, DXgov Mission Wardens. You can see this is actually from Candy Forks, DAO Talk name, because I've been working on this with Ross G for a lot. He did a lot of the great work on this. And so DXgov Mission Wardens, I encourage everyone to read this post where I give a brief overview of it now. So this was, I think, originally coined guild councils, but these are people tasked with providing accountability and some type of like assessment of performance for the guilds themselves. And so this is like another layer of DXDAO governance that you would have. And right now, the only real like way that DXDAO governance has to influence guilds is through the budget that they pass at the beginning of their term and the scope of work that is in there. And they can simply request to change it. They can vote down the proposal if they don't like it. But those are really the primary ways that they have that. And then after that, rep holders are not necessarily going to be engaged with all of the day-to-day minutia of what's going on with the guilds. So the goal of this is to create an in-between. I think it's called a layer in between execution and governance, right? So the execution is the guilds that is going on, kind of they're executing on the vision and the priorities of DXDAO. And then for governance, they are, voting on that and on chain. But really, they need a lot more information and a lot more coordination. So this extra layer of governance, I think, is what the mission wardens can accomplish here or there. So yeah, as I said, kind of read it for more information. There's kind of two clear responsibilities that these mission wardens would have. The first is to attend and provide feedback on a halfway check-in provided by the guild team in March or April. So this would not be a written report, but it's just making sure that there is a presentation both from the guild and the wardens themselves. And the second, this is kind of the key thing, is a mission assessment 1 month prior to conclusion of the 6-month budgetary term. And so we can maybe go into, we created a little bit of a template of what this, we need to change that. I guess no one clicked on it, so I didn't realize that. But anyway, there's we have this sample mission assessment for what kind of mission wardens would potentially fill out there. And then we also have laid out what a potential nomination and election process would be. We actually did look at this and kind of steal a lot of it from the ENS working group elections, where basically you need to nominate yourself and then meet a specific amount of support. And then once you get that support, then there will be a general election to be able to actually select the specific people there. It's kind of like being, when you have traditional politics, you need to get a petition with 5,000 names on it to run for Congress. So this first thing is basically get that petition, and then you get on the ballot there as well. This one does also include the compensation. I think this is really important. If you're asking people to do work, you need to make sure that they are paid for that work. And so here the mix we had is 1K in stablecoins and 4K in DXD vested for 1 year. And so for this, you can see here, I think this kind of goes back to the same discussion we were just having. I think, having someone that is judging guild performance, the key incentive that I want to have is I want them to want DXD to grow in value. I want them to want the treasury to go in value. And that is aligning them on the 4K DXD there vested over 1 year. And then the 1K in stable coins there just as another payment there. So that was what we were thinking with the compensation. And then still some discussion on thinking about how many wardens to have. My original thought process was to be able to have basically 2 sets of 3 wardens, right? So these one would be focused on the products, Swapper, DXgov, Carrot, and then the other would be focused on voice and operations. But we could do that. We also don't necessarily need to have a defined number of wardens, because they're not really going to be like a board who's voting on things or not. They're more likely going to be again, providing feedback and assessment. So you actually don't need to have a specific number of them. And so I think we can kind of figure that out. You can see here, Caden, I think what we were saying is if the proposal passes, then we will need to the nomination process. This is just the first instance of it. But of course, Caden is already nominating himself for a warden there. I think in terms of timeline, as I said, we're just kind of presenting this information here. And so would want to have a lot of feedback on kind of what this program would look like. So I think it would probably be at least a couple more weeks before we kind of move to proposal. And then we need to kind of have a nomination process. So that would probably take place over February. I also think it's a really good opportunity, not just to engage people that have been in the DXDAO community and maybe a little bit distant, but also those that are outside the DXDAO community, trying to gain some additional outside perspective. And then Nylon has a great point here that says, should wardens be anonymous? And I would think it would be great for there to be an anonymous warden, maybe not all of them, but I think the key is providing feedback effectively. So if someone is anonymous, that may enable them to provide that feedback more effectively, but it may be very difficult for DXDAO governance to judge the effectiveness of this warden if they are anonymous. So maybe if there was pseudonymous would be another way, but there's a way of kind of evaluating the effectiveness of the individual as a warden while they are anonymous, I think would be a really effective way to do. I think it's Ross. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just a thought of, I guess you touched exactly on the point that if you want this to be effective, I don't know, if someone is rating, narrowing it or breaking it down to someone is criticizing my work, and because there are some if I'm your friend, then I might be like less reluctant to, review your work negatively in front of your face. And so, I don't know, perhaps this could be an interesting way to allow that. So yeah, that's kind of the thought process. But yeah, you do want to, I guess, you can have it like completely anonymous. You need to have like, I guess, reputation of the warden, etc., etc. So
Yeah, you want good wardens. You want to be able to pick which wardens you have to make sure that you're going to get, good quality stuff from them, and you can hold them accountable. But once you have the group of wardens, maybe they are anonymized within that group so that, you don't necessarily get targeting against any particular person. And the reviews could be anonymized and presented as, this is what different wardens said, but you don't know which warden said what.
Yeah, and something Ross G and I were talking about was, I also would like the wardens, whoever it is, to have some freedom to figure out exactly how they would like to operate in general, right? So that's why the only real requirement is to fill out a single assessment, and then maybe different wardens will kind of have different ways of working. Maybe they want to work together in a group and doing that, or kind of work separately. So cool. I won't belabor too much longer here, because I think this is kind of actually pretty big. Would be a pretty big program and kind of involve a lot of different things. And we just got the first one out just yesterday, so would love some feedback, these kind of feedback here, and we'll keep working on this. As I said, probably looking for like a proposal on maybe the end of the week. Oh, sorry, end of the month. That was a big thing. So before the end of the month, and we can kind of work on ironing out some kinks, and then doing like the nominations in February and early March. Yes. I will allow this, Connor, because it's like perfect point and it illustrates why member balancer I think is actually really effective. Because just on the member balancer, my calculation was based on the exact snapshot at which the DXD was sent to the DAO. Precisely, because like there's really no kind of argument about that now. But if you were to send the DXD and a member balancer now and do that exact snapshot now, that snapshot would include like $5.2 million worth of DXD in the treasury. So that actually would not be that accurate of a snapshot, and it would kind of, require a lot of different things. But the real benefit of member balancer and the original, so just to give some credit, Sky is the original, inventor of member balancer, and it was really about diversifying the treasury early on when DXDAO had all this ETH, and we were trying to figure out how to diversify it, and we didn't want to use multi-sigs. It's the same thing that's true even like 2 years ago. So the member balancer was used there, and basically people would send stable coins to the treasury and then immediately create a proposal asking for those to return. I think we did have like a 1% fee or return to try to encourage people to do that. But it's just like very clear cut, right? It's like this address sent this amount and at this time, and you can kind of vote and calculate on that. And so I actually think that those questions become a lot more complicated when you get into using the multi-sig itself, because there are lots of kind of changes with that, which with the member balancer there really isn't. And the same thing with the liquidity order, or so the cow swap purchases. Like for there, that calculation is happening at the proposal submission. That's like boom, 70%, and then those proposals are voted down, I guess, by governance. And Dave and I are watching this. If at the time of passing that 70%, it would be higher than 70% there, and that's a way of making it clear cut there. And the same with the redemptor, like it's very clear cut there. So it is just very helpful to have this very clear, so there's not all of this discussion and debate. But that's also why we're here. Yeah, and to Connor's further point, he's not going to use the DXD buybacks that happen between now and when his member balancers pass. I think there was just like 9 DXD purchased through the cow swap order like a couple hours ago, and so that would affect that. And there's a couple that are over the next couple of days that would end up affecting that. But member balancer is at the time of the submission or the transaction that's sending the funds to the treasury. Cool. What else? Anything else on the mind? Maybe just some also worth checking out. As I said before, the governance gas refunds are up now. So those are always fun to get your, if you've worked on governance, you can kind of see there. And then, yeah, just a call to attention, just scheduling the first priorities board monthly check-in. So the priorities board is also after the phase 2 and restructuring focus proposal. So this is going to be a week and a half from now on Monday, January 23rd at 11 a.m. So yeah, you can check out the existing comments there. We also have Ross, who did not get as many likes as I did, giving some good feedback there. So yeah, anyone else, make sure and give some feedback there, and would love to have anyone on this call the next Monday. Okay, I think that's it. Any other thoughts, comments, suggestions before we close? Hasta la vista is correct. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris.